All right. Peace and greetings, YouTubers. So welcome to another edition of In the News. Before I jump into the stories, I did want to shout out the user Chris V. It's spelled C-R-I-S and a letter V. Chris V recently released a music video. It's called Compliments. And if you check out his channel, he has some other really cool music on there. There's another song on there called Trippin' that I like as well. I didn't get a chance to include him in my shout out series just because he reached out a little bit after I released it. And I know I'm probably not doing another shout out video until probably May. So I just wanted to make sure that he had some time to get his shine. So for those who are new subscribers who recently subscribed, be sure to check out the shout out series. I pretty much give exposure to people who are working on different projects, who may have a business, who may be releasing a book or an album or a service or anything like that. Because of course, as I'm trying to make my own climb, I just want to pull people up with me as well. So definitely check out his music and definitely check out the people from the shout out series. Anyway, let's jump into some stories. So I'm gonna start with the lighter stuff and then we'll jump into the heavier subject matter. So I do have to talk about the movie Us. I know I'm late to the party, but that's what happens when it's been 2 weeks since you did a video. I did want to talk about Us because a lot of you kept asking my 2 cents on it. I'm going to give some spoilers. So the best advice is to pause this video when I snap my finger and say go. Pause the video. If you scroll down to the description, there's going to be timestamps to tell you where all the stories start. So for those who don't want to hear the commentary on the movie Us, you can pause the video and look at the timestamp and it'll tell you exactly what to skip to. And you can do that now. All right, so for those who are still here, I saw Us and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't crazy over it. I ended up seeing it twice and it made more sense for me the second time I saw it. But the first time I saw it, I guess I went in with a certain expectation because, you know, all the reviews were saying, oh, this is the best movie of 2019, this, that, and the third. And people were writing all these think pieces before they even saw the movie. And so I thought at the time it was going to be some kind of movie that tied and correlated the plight of the black experience with the plight of walking through society and all this other stuff. And so when the movie turned out to not be anything like that, it kind of threw me off a bit. I wasn't ready for it. And then the other part was Winston Duke's character. Man, when I tell you I wanted to fight him myself, that character, just for all the height he had, he was like 6'100", 200 something pounds, but he had to be the sorriest one in the movie. He was beat up the whole movie. It was driving me crazy. Like he got hit all of 2 times, but he spent the whole movie crawling. Oh. I'm like, all right, man. We know you hurt, but everybody else, like the kids had more heart than him. I mean, the daughter was out there. She was bucking, and you know, she was fighting her tethered version, and the son went and did what he had to do. Lupita was doing what she had to do, and here he was crawling. Every time I saw him, at least for the first hour of the movie, he was on the floor. I'm like, you gotta get up. Like, come on, man. What? Where is the fight or flight? He's not even really doing the whole flight thing. He's just trying to die at this point. Because if this was any other movie where the white girl trips over the tree branch, he would have been dead. Because, you know, when the white girl trips over the tree branch in the movie when she's running, she just gives up. And pretty much, he gave up to me. He was just moving too slow. I was like, y'all should have just went ahead and stabbed him. I was tired of him. Like, God, he got on my nerves. Just sorry. Got on my nerves. And so, I think people... Because somebody was arguing with me on Facebook and they're like, no, you just didn't understand. Like, Peele was trying to capture the essence of the strong black man and that he was supposed to dig into. I was like, no, y'all are making this deeper than it really is. Because in my opinion, this movie was very raceless. The characters happened to be black, but it had nothing to do with like a black experience at all. I think as far as him just wanting to write narratives, he wants to put the imaging and black faces out there and kind of go left field with how he carries the storylines, which is fine. It's just, to me, it seemed like it was marketed a certain way, even with like Winston Duke's character wearing like the Howard hoodie. I personally think that was more of a marketing ploy to get like HBCU students to jump on board and, you know, do what you got to do. I think when I saw it the second time and I didn't look at it from that aspect and I just looked at it as a movie, I'm like, okay, this isn't too bad. Actually, okay, interesting. There were a few loopholes where I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. But overall, you know, the movie, it was okay. But again, God, Winston Duke's character was so sorry. And then when he was on that boat and he had finally killed his tethered person, or no, he didn't kill him yet. What did he do? Something with the boat, and the boat took off and he fell off the boat and fell in the water. I'm like, just sorry. Yeah, I mean, your whole family, you don't even know where your family's at because you out in this boat. Come on, man. Like, they were doing him like the Yellow Ranger in the Power Rangers movie, like the original movie, like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, where they had the black girl that was the Yellow Ranger after they got rid of the Asian girl. And remember Aisha? Like, she just got beat up the whole movie, which I already knew there was a problem then because I don't know too many Aishas that get beat up. But dang, like, if you saw that Power Ranger movie, Aisha got beat up the whole movie. I'm like, how are you supposed to be a Power Ranger? You getting beat up by a bird. Like, that's what I thought of Winston Duke's character. It killed me. Even the speaking voice I couldn't stand. I know I'm someone who already has like a higher pitched speaking voice, but he just came off so corny to me, just goofy. I was like, man, goodness, I was pissed the first time I saw the movie. And the only reason I saw it the second time is because a friend was like, oh, I haven't seen it, let's go. And I'm like, all right. Only because I ain't hung with you in like 5 months, let's go. But when I watched it the second time and just tried to watch it as the piece that he was trying to make it to become, I was like, okay, I see what he's doing here. So, it was all right. I wasn't crazy over it, but man, that first time I was hot after watching that. I was like, y'all could have kept this. I'm like, goodness, Winston Dukes, this tall and sorry. All that height, all that size. You got hit 2 times on the floor the whole movie. Ooh. No. Oh, and then the other part. I know I'm ranting. I need to let this movie go. But the part when they escape their house and they get to the friend's house, and the friends they've all been killed, and so then they kill the tethered people of the friends, and then they discover that okay, there's more crazy tethered people out around the whole area, and Winston Duke is like, well, let's just stay here. We can hide here. We'll be safe. We have food. And I'm like, wait a minute. Y'all didn't kill all of the tethered versions of yourself. And because they already know your every move, that means they're coming to the house at some point. So why would you stay there and hide in a glass house? You know what I mean? And for you to be the father, you have no backbone. Like what? Anyway, moving on. And then we got to talk about Aunt Becky, because she recently went to court to face the charges that are pending surrounding the college admissions scandal. And it's the most interesting dynamic, because when you look at the clip, she's totally unfazed. I mean, she showed up with the shades on, she's waving, she's signing autographs. Like, I'm gonna have the clip playing on the side while I'm talking. Like, she just went in there like it was gonna be a red carpet extravaganza. Look how excited she is. Hi. You have to visit me in Connecticut. Come to the beach house. I'll talk to you in the spring. Like, unfazed. And it just goes to show you that we're living in so many different worlds, and the world that she is a part of is so privileged where she's not even somebody who fears the court system. Because, let's think about it. When it comes to court, a lot of us be shook. Some of us, when it comes to court, there's no red carpet doing waves. I don't know too many people who go to court excited. I don't know too many people who can even try to put on a face like they're unfazed. I know folks right now who are just going to court for a misdemeanor, and they're shook. I mean, they done went and got that Steve Harvey suit that's 2 sizes too big. They done put on their Sunday best. They ain't wore a suit in 3 years, but they got it for this court date. It's the Easter suit that grandma bought them when they were 18. Now they trying to stuff into it at 24, and they gonna wear it to court. It's gonna be some bright green suit, pinstripe, all right, and a shiny tie for court. And so, folks, every day folks be at court shook, nervous, no telling what's gonna happen. I'm not gonna lie. One time, I had a speeding ticket. I was gonna fight it in court, and then I was like, you know what? I did get caught on like a speed camera like a week before the court date, and I don't know if that's in the system already, so I don't even want to take the chances, because who knows what else they might dig up. So you know what? Let me just pay the $200. I'm gonna cut back on the cable this month. Like that was life. So it's just interesting to see what's happening, and a lot of you guys really hit the nail on the head when I did the video on this, just about the fact that none of this is really a surprise. It's not anything shocking as far as this whole cheating scandal, because everybody's always said this has kind of just been under the table talk for years anyway, where you have a lot of really wealthy people and really wealthy white folks just kind of getting their way into many doors without the accolades to match. Just being able to just jump into many doors because there's wealth behind their name, because they can write the check, because there's an association, just because there's a lineage. It's the way things have always been. And so, to be honest, I don't even think she has much to worry about, because what are they going to give her, probation? Make her get a fine? They're not going to, I don't think she's going to do any jail time. But who knows? We'll see. But I also think that this is only going to get bigger. And then what I found out, so it turns out with this entire case, the reason this thing really blew up was because they were actually trying to go after one of the coaches in like a bribing scandal, this black dude. And he was like, hold up, wait a minute. And so as they were trying to investigate him, everything blew up. And it was like, oh, it's bigger than just this dude that y'all were trying to take down. Actually, y'all might want to check on some of y'all friends. So, it's funny to see where that is going. But we'll follow that story. Lord. And then we got to talk about this man who got killed trying to poach the rhinos in South Africa. I don't know if you saw this story, but his plan was he was going to go into this protected space, a space that was like a national park where poaching was outlawed and hunting was outlawed. You were not allowed to mess with these animals, especially the rhinos, because one, they're already endangered. Everybody keeps trying to go after the rhinos and the elephants because they have the ivory tusks and the ivory horn. And so, he was going to go into the area, shoot the rhino, get the horn, be on his merry way, cash that check, and go live a good life. Instead, Mother Nature said, not so fast. So he goes into the space, and I guess while he's on the prowl to go find the rhino, he gets met up by some elephants. The elephants were like, what you doing? And so the elephants attacked the man, like literally stumped the man to death. I'm like, what kind of hood mess is this? They stumped the man to death, killed him, and then the best part they carried him to the road and dropped him off because they knew that's where the humans in the cars and stuff would come find him. They were like, come get your boy. Y'all come on and get him. And then on top of that, the lions come in and they're like, oh, actually, no, we got this. We'll take care of this. And so the lions take the body and they go and eat the man. And the only thing that they could find were the man's trousers and like a hat. I said, Mother Nature, listen, the animals ain't playing with us. They are sick of us. They ain't playing with us no more. Mother Nature always wins. I said, that's crazy. That was like a 3-for-1 special tag team. Like, if they ever want to make a movie plot for Madagascar 3, there you have it. That's the plot right there. Like, the animals weren't having it. I said, now that gotta suck. Especially, like, I don't know if the person had a wife or children, but picture the wife trying to go and claim that with the life insurance agents, And like, oh, well, how did he die? Oh, well, he was trampled by elephants and then eaten by lions. And then they couldn't find the rest of the body. That lady on the phone was like, oh, that's not quite covered under our policy. Like, you know how crappy insurance be. Woo, that was a mess. Y'all better stop messing with these animals. I'm telling you, that would be a good movie plot. Like, if everybody's pet turned on them overnight, like, a whole lot of folks wouldn't make it out of that movie because we love our dogs. So, man, like, picture Fluffy turning into Cujo, taking out everybody. Like, Jordan Peele, that might be a movie you want to hop on. I guess that Pet Sematary might be something similar. I haven't seen it yet, but people said it was terrible. So, there's that. But yeah, y'all gonna learn. Stop messing with Mother Nature. Mother Nature wins every time. You done went trying to be greedy because we've had that conversation about money and integrity and the things that people will do, in the name of greed. And look where it got him. He ain't even here no more. All for a rhino tusk. And look, the rhino probably just chilling, grazing. And the animals, I know they're talking trash about it. Remember that dude that came in here trying to shoot one of us and we just took him out? Embarrassing. Them elephants really dragged him to the curb though. Like, what? These animals be communicating, I'm telling you. Anyway, moving on. I did want to talk about Lil Nas X. I think I said his name right. So that's the guy with the Old Town Road song. And so, as we know, and it's so crazy because I definitely was just kind of somewhat talking about a similar topic when I went live the week before last. And so he had the song Old Town Road. And it was pretty much a trap song that he kind of played with and gave it a country vibe. And it blew up. It went viral. It started getting traction. And it started climbing on the charts rapidly. And I think it's projected to be number 1 on the Hot 100 this week or possibly next week. I just know it's in the top 10. And so country music heads were feeling some kind of way because they felt that, no, this isn't real country. And so Billboard actually yanked the song off the country music charts, all in the name of it not being a real country song. And so he decided, okay, I got y'all. And he went and he got Billy Ray Cyrus on the song and did a remix. And so I think that version may be eligible for the country charts. But I think this opens a bigger dialogue. And the dialogue is just going to show you where the music industry stands when it comes to terms of race. Because that is not the first song that is not quite, I guess, country influenced that has made it on the country charts or that has hit the realm of the country world. But I find it funny that this is one of the first songs to be yanked. I believe Nelly's song, when he had the Over and Over Again song, I forgot who he did the duet with, but I think that one also wasn't eligible to be on the country charts. And really, that's a territorial thing, and that's them just trying to control the narrative of who they think is allowed to be country. But in my opinion, I always felt that the genres were always defined by the artist. It was always the artist who got to say whether this was rap, whether this was pop, whether this was R&B, whether it was country, whether it was jazz. I always left it up to the artist because music is already subjective, and so and it's also left to be interpreted. So I always felt that it was up to the artist. And so my issue with the country music world, with that aspect is, and I just literally said this on the live video, if you go and you look at some of the biggest country hits from 2017 and 2018, a lot of them, in my opinion, if you want to play by the same rules that they just played with the Lil Nas X kid, a lot of the biggest hits were not country songs. They were snap tracks with R&B melodies, and the only difference was it had a little slight guitar riff, but then even the delivery of the songs, it'd be these kind of semi-swagged out white boys that were singing pretty much R&B songs with a little country twist, but they weren't really country songs. And we talked about this because the real country heads, like the Brooks and Dunn fans and the Faith Hill fans and whoever else from back in the day, they are not fans of that current sound that's happening in country. If you go and you look at these really big country crossover hits that have been crossing over, they're not quite country. They're pop. They're I don't want to call them R&B because I'm not going to give them that much credit, but they're influenced by R&B. And so I found it funny that all of a sudden a black individual comes with a song that pretty much goes in somewhat that same lane. And they're like, whoa, this is too much. We got to yank this. And so I'm like, you guys I can't. Because then, you know what I think of? I think of Trace Atkins. He had this song that came out when I was in high school. It was called Hunky Tonk There was that honky tonk, but dunk-a-dunk. Yeah, so it was a real song. Go YouTube that crap. That song made it all the way to number 2 on the country charts. And it was not a freaking country song. It's this dude singing about white girls' behinds and woo-wee, shut my mouth, slap your grandma. Like, those are the lyrics. And I'm like, so that crap got to be number 2 on the country charts, but y'all got a problem with Lil Nas X. I think what happened is because, you know, in some realms, there's spaces that we as black people are not invited to. Mind you, we made country music. We created that crap anyway. That crap is stolen from us. But, you know, they took it back over and they want to hold on to it, and so they want to be selfish with the space, and so they want to control who's allowed in that space. And because he was getting too much traction, and because too many of the people who were into the song did not fit the realm or fit the look of what they want that demographic of listeners to be, and that demographic as far as who would influence or who they would influence, they didn't want that association. So they tried to distance themselves by yanking him off the charts and trying to say, okay, his stuff is only rap music, keep it over there. And so I find it funny because when we talk about music and we talk about genres, you know, genres have so many elements anyway. If we just take something like R&B has so many different categories. You have currently this whole vibey music. It kind of fits with the realm of alternative R&B. You have the traditional R&B. You have contemporary R&B. And then you have the R&B that's a little bit more pop infused. You have the R&B that's more hip-hop infused. And then you have R&B that's centered around like house music. Like you go back into the early 90s, late 80s, house music was pretty much dance music, but the way that it was delivered vocally was R&B. So when you got Martha Wash singing on like a CNC Music Factory song or a Black Box song, you have this soulful R&B vocalist singing over a pop dance track, but it's still, in my opinion, it's an R&B song. Same thing with like New Jack Swing, which was a little bit more hip-hop influenced, but it was still R&B. And then, you know, you have so many sounds. And even in country, it's the same thing. Country's always had more than one sound. You've had bluegrass. You had, you know, the more pop sounding things. So you can have a Taylor Swift who was classified as country, but you could have the Dixie Chicks who were classified as country, or Faith Hill who was country, or Shania Twain who was a bit more pop, or, you know, somebody like Keith Urban or Toby Keith. Like there's a bunch of different lanes. So I found it funny that with all the lanes that country music has, out of nowhere, this one song gets some traction and then they want to all of a sudden act like there's rules to play by. Industry's fickle. Folks are fickle. So, you know, I hope his song blows up, because mind you, I don't even like the song like that, but I hope it blows up. I hope if it ends back up on the country charts, I hope it sits on top of that crap for like 9 weeks. I hope it breaks a record just to piss somebody off, because the way that they yanked him off that's just rooted in straight up racism. That's what that's about. You know, they don't ever want to see black folks doing well, especially if it's something that they think we're not supposed to be a part of. Trifling. Moving on. And then I wanted to spend some time talking about the 3 churches that all were burned down within the span of 10 days. Now, these were 3 predominantly black churches in rural Louisiana. And some folks were saying, oh, no, it's not a race thing. You know, one of the buildings was old. It could have just been short-circuited wires and, you know, it sparked a fire. Who knows? But you can't bring race into everything. You're known for doing that all the time. My response to that is, when you look at the context and the history of how this country has always operated, when you look at the cycle of what's happened in the past and how it's always happened again, when you talk about the race riots that's happened in the 1800s and the 1900s, you know, the black church was always one of the first targets. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's always been one of the targets. So when you really look in the dynamics of what's happened in the past, there were always 3 things that would be burned down during like a race riot. They'd always burn down the church, because that was the place of serenity where people went to find their inner peace. That was the place where people felt that they had sanctuary or that they were safe, because people still used to operate and think that the whole world had a moral compass and nobody would dare burn down the church, because that would be the home where God lives. And so, you know, they burned down the church. That would send a message. That was psychological warfare to instill fear in people. The next thing they would burn down would always be the institutions and the schools. Because of course things were segregated. You know, burn down the black schoolhouse, burn down the black school, because you burn down the place of learning. You burn down the place where there's archived research. You burn down the place where people are able to empower themselves and learn and to become strategic as far as becoming successful in society. You burn that down. And the last thing they burn down is any type of resource, something like crops. So if people had farmland, you go and you burn down all the crops so nobody has anything to eat that week. And so those were the 3 things you get. Burn down the church, burn down the school, burn down the crops or the store, or in later times it would be the grocery store, or just the way that people would eat. Because of course, in a segregated town, if you burn down the black grocery store, they can't go to the white side of town and buy milk. I think not. You want a brick thrown at your head? So that was society. And so I think even today, like I've said a few videos ago, everything works full cycle. I think that's why I got so annoyed with Daniel Caesar when he said all that nonsense, because I was like, not today, man, not today. And so, you know, I find it interesting that, you know, this is still, actually, I don't find it interesting that it's still going on. It's actually not shocking to me at all. But the part that gets me, I think that's disturbing, is that you constantly see people going after everybody's like internal place of peace. No matter what religion you are, or if you don't do religion at all, the thing that gets me is that you're seeing an influx of churches, mosques, and temples being attacked, whether it's white people going and shooting them up or them getting burned down. And I find it interesting because it's like, wow, you'll go after the demographic of people who have chosen to somewhat find a more centered way to deal with the aggressions of the world from a spiritual realm instead of a physical realm where maybe they want to retaliate and go shoot some folks. Instead of doing that, they say, okay, let me go to the mosque and pray. Let me go to the temple and pray. Let me go to the church and pray, because that will make me have a more sensible way to respond to what's happening as opposed to being reactionary. That's the response for some people. That's the way that some people respond to tragedy and trauma and hardship and anything crazy. And so for folks to go and burn those down, I'm like, that's absolutely crazy. And it just goes to show you, like, folks are losing it. And the part that gets me the most is this is nothing new under the sun, because white supremacy is so prevalent and so common here that it's becoming the norm, where you're not even shocked when these things happen anymore. It's just the way things are. And, I think whoever's burning those churches down, of course, it's them trying to implement fear into those demographics. Especially, you have to think if it's a rural area, because it makes people feel like they're not safe. Another aspect about the black church in some areas, because in some areas, the black church was the pillar of the community. The black church was where people got together to do politics and everything like that. Now, times have shifted, and I think the black church has divided and gone into many directions. So you have some churches who are still that, and then you have some where you don't even know what they be doing. But, I think they're trying to send a message. That the church sometimes is that pillar in the community. So if they weren't doing the political stuff, you have those churches that do the back to school drives and they get the backpacks for the kids. You saw, like, I don't want to start shouting out churches because this church already had a bomb threat before, like, I think a few months ago. But, there was a church in Alexandria, Virginia that raised $100,000 for Howard University students. And then you have the churches that do the food banks. You have churches that do HIV testing. You have churches that do programs for people who have gotten out of jail and are trying to get back into the workforce. You have churches that do all of that kind of work, doing a lot of work that the government no longer does for black people as a collective if we really want to get into it. And so, or if they do it, it's so limited and it's so punitive that it isn't even something that's resourceful or anything that's empowering. And so you're seeing those become the targets. And again, it's that same mentality where, okay, attack the place of serenity and peace for some, attack the institutions of learning, and attack the resources, and take it all out. Keep people pretty much nimble. Keep people where they're stuck on their knees, where they have to come to you for help. And because you now carry the power to the resources, you deny it and say, go. So that's the sad aspect. And then, again, as far as white supremacy just being so prevalent, like, I just saw one of those Fox News anchors got a lot of flack because he said some line about black folks not wanting to assimilate into American culture or some crap like that. And then I started thinking, like, well, what is your definition of assimilating into American culture? Because, again, just the verbiage and the language, for me, it comes off as saying the only way to assimilate into anything is to assimilate into what white Americans are doing as a collective. If you're not assimilating into that, then you're not assimilating. And by admitting or acknowledging that, that means you're recognizing that the only standard of how to live in a society would be through the lens of what white people see and what white people believe is appropriate. And that's an issue because, to me, that is not the way everything aligns. That's one of the reasons why, like, I've been trying to pay attention to all the candidates, and some of them I'm not crazy over, but I know for sure Cory Booker, I'm not voting for that dude. I can't. After I saw something happen one week, something racist in the country that wasn't new under the sun, because it's something every day, but his response to the situation was, well, why don't we look at it through the lens of white Americans? And I'm like, why do we keep doing that? They're not the only people who live here. And when you do that, again, you give power to other other entities that are corrupt within that collective. When we're talking about white supremacists, we know that all white Americans are not white supremacists. However, white supremacy runs this country. And so when you continue to give favor to that energy and you continue to give favor into, oh, well, we need to just look at it through their lens. Why? You've created a space where they are the standard, where their way of thinking is the standard and everybody else is inferior, and we have to abide by what makes them comfortable. I'm sorry, just being black in America is uncomfortable. So why do I have to make you comfortable? That's not my problem. And so that's an issue we're running into. And just to kind of put some more tangible, I guess, beef and backing into what I'm saying, I was looking at the situation with the black student that was killed, that was from Bowie State. Remember, he was killed by this white supremacist dude. And so, of course, he was charged with murder, but they also wanted to press federal hate crime charges against him. And actually, they didn't go through, and the justification was they were a violation of his First Amendment rights because they found all this crazy white supremacist, anti-black, kill the monkey, shoot the N-word type stuff in his phone. And they said, with that, he has free speech, this, that, and the third. And I'm looking at it like, okay, you have this individual, he has all this crazy stuff in his phone. He's been on all these white supremacist sites and all these forums and blogs about how much he hates the black people and we're the tar babies and full of soot and all that other crap. And then he randomly goes and kills a random black person he doesn't even know. To me, that's a hate crime. But somehow it's protected by the First Amendment. So again, white supremacy is just so prevalent in society now. It's just the way things have always been set up. And so now it's almost crazy to go and fight it because now you have to try to consider everybody's feelings when combating it. That's the issue we have now. So somebody like Cory Booker, I'm sorry, you don't have a backbone in this game. So you just go ahead and I'm good. Everybody's trying to be Martin Luther King listen, I can't. No disrespect to Martin Luther King, but listen, Martin Luther King did have a backbone. He already said he led us into a burning house. I think y'all need to burn the house down if we want to go there. And so, there's that. But we'll see what happens. Folks, it's crazy, man. Like, folks are really losing it. Society is just, woo. And I think with social media being out, all of these stories continue to get exposed even more because you just have access to the news now. So, because this is nothing new under the sun. This has always been happening. We've seen churches being bombed and, the 4 little girls being killed and bomb threats at different HBCUs and everything like that. It's nothing new under the sun. So folks are going to continue to be crazy. And it's like, well, how do you matriculate in society? Like, it's just a lot on people's plate. And so, it's a lot. The last thing I did want to close on was Nipsey Hussle. I didn't get a chance to talk about, it when it all first happened because one, I've just, my plate is so full right now. I got 3 projects I'm working on. One is almost out next month, and then there's 2 other ones, so it's taking up a lot of my freaking time, which is also one of the reasons I really need to shave. I really need to shave because I'm about 2 days away from looking like a member of the Whispers. In my head, all this is filled in, even though I can only get a few little strips to come out. But, I need to shave. But I have a shoot in 4 days, and I don't want to shave before then because if I shave now, I'm gonna have to shave again in 2 or 3 days. I got really sensitive skin, and so I'm like, nope, too much. I don't want to irritate my face. But on a more serious note, enough on me, back to Nipsey Hussle. The thing I'll say is this: I think the saddest part was that I kept thinking about the child and how that child is gonna grow up and not really remember their father. I always think that's the saddest thing. Whenever I see a tragedy, the first thing I always think of is the family, the kids, and then I always think of the spouse. It's just tough, especially if you're the girlfriend or the wife or the husband or the boyfriend when a spouse dies or, it's tough. That's a really tough space to be in because I think when people abruptly die, you don't plan for it. It's different if you grow old together and then your spouse dies. It's still just as painful, just as sad, but you knew that day was coming. Or if, that spouse was sick. You don't want them to die, but you know that in the back of your mind that day could come. But when somebody just abruptly dies out of nowhere and you've made plans and you made goals and, we're going to buy a house here and we're going to do this and we do that and it's taken away, that's a pain that's just man, that hurts. And there's so many crazy elements to this. You know what I mean? The whole, with Chris Darden representing the Eric Holder guy who allegedly shot him, even though it's on video, so I don't know why it would be alleged. Crazy. I'm like, Chris Darden, I didn't even know. Well, here's my question. How does Eric Holder afford Chris Darden? I feel like because Chris Darden was on the OJ case, he would just have a huge fee. I don't even know how that works. Was he appointed by the state? I don't know how that works. But, man, I found that interesting. And then I've seen a lot of people are really pissed with the Kodak Black situation because, of course, he was already talking about how much time he was going to give Lauren London before he started trying to spit game to her. And I'm like, yes, we can be outraged about that, but y'all should have also been mad at the fact that this man has a few other things going on that really should have been addressed years ago that nobody ever said anything about. So, if this is where you want to draw the line because all of a sudden, he's kind of low-key disrespecting Nipsey Hussle by trying to speak to his girl and you're not paying attention to the rape charges and everything else, I guess. But the thing that I guess I really get out of this is, I saw a lot of people saying, he was one of the good ones. He built the stores and he had this and he had this and he had that. And it's all, what do we do now? And I always say my response to that is you keep going. And you fill those lanes that he's already open. And, I always say everybody is in a position to do good in the community. You don't even have to be rich to do something that impacts your community. A lot of people, especially in the millennial demographic, we all want to start these big giant movements and people want to start these big companies and do all these big things in the community. And I'm like, sometimes if you don't have the resources, you can start small. Even something as simple as just watching your block, making sure your block is good, making sure the trash is picked up in front of the senior citizens who live on your block. Just simple things like that. Even though it may not seem like it's a lot, it is making an impact, because you know what I mean? So when those people are coming in and the developers are looking, one of the first things developers love to do when they go in a neighborhood, depending on where you live, you may see this all the time, where you may be on the rough side of town and you see a bunch of white folks walking with suitcases and clipboards and stuff. They're looking and they're observing the neighborhood and they're saying, oh, there's trash here. These people clearly don't care. And this is that. And this is the dilapidated. I think this is the neighborhood we want to develop. So, even just by you picking up the trash in the neighborhood, that plays a role. Even if you want to start a tutor program for the 6 kids on your street, just to make sure that they're good, I feel like that plays a role. It doesn't always have to be you opening a business, because if you don't have the resources, you don't have the resources. But it doesn't mean that they don't come later down the line as your service continues to grow. So, if you want to be that person who starts some kind of tutoring project with the kids in your neighborhood, that's a way to start. You know what I mean? If you want to start some kind of babysitting thing at a really low cost, like, I don't know, maybe you and your other teenage friends get together and you're like, we're going to do like a parents' night out day. We'll babysit your kids for a few hours, and mom and dad, you can go to the movies, go do a date night or something like that, because you work too hard. All of that plays a role. Or gardening, a community garden. You're seeing a lot of those happen. Like, there's so many ways to do community work. It's always not about having the big name title or having the big business. But if you do have the resources to do that, it's great if you can start that. So I think with Nipsey Hussle, as far as him starting the businesses, he how do I word this? He's one pillar to a larger building with that aspect. And so it's sad that he's gone, but he's planted that seed. And so it's up to the people in that area to continue to kind of sprout and let that seed grow and water it and nurture it and do what they got to do. Because when I was watching the clips, I was like, this was amazing, because he had the store. He had, I think it was like a restaurant that was about to open. I want to say it was some kind of daycare service or an after-school program that was starting. I'm like, that's dope. That's really dope. And so I think a lot of times we limit ourselves because we're afraid that we can't do something. One of my really, really good friends just started their own nonprofit literally yesterday. And it's something that's been on their heart for 10 years. And I remember I just kept saying, just go for it. Just do it. And so they finally got it off the ground. And I'll talk about that in another video. And so, again, when it comes to just community work, everybody's needed. It's not just the rich folks who have money who can buy a block and do something. It's like everybody, find what your gift is. Find what your lane is. And you go and you make it happen. And I think that's the best way you can let somebody's legacy live on. And so I think this has been a long video, so I'm going to wrap it up here. We're going to go live again, I think, next week. I had a lot of fun doing the live video with you guys last week. That was fun. So I think we're going to go live either next Wednesday or Thursday. Whichever day I decide, I'll post it in the community section on the page. Anyway, I'm out. My voice keeps cracking, man. That means I need to go to bed. So anyway, I'm out. Subscribe, share your 2 cents.